That's the Eurythmics. That's Sweet Dreams Are Made of This. Stan Radio Style. Hope everybody out there's having themselves a great day. I love the fact that I have a mute button, but I need to remember to press it sometimes, don't I? All right, so studies that prove how imagining works. I came across this. It's a slightly different topic, but at the same time, it actually gets right into the core of what we're talking about with Neville Goddard and with Law of Attraction and with all this stuff, and why we always start off with the imaginal work. And there's actually been some scientific studies. I cite a couple, and I'll try to see if I can find the articles because I just copied snippets out and threw it into a Word doc and printed it out and brought it home with me from work. But I'll try to see if I can find at least the articles to kind of link them down below. But there was two different sources that I found, and just mainly to keep this kind of short. One was in the Smithsonian.com, and another was in LiveScience.com. And of course, I did find a number of other articles. Those are just the two that I grabbed some snippets out of. But there's definitely been some significant evidence done on how imagination actually does affect memory, kind of to the point where your memory actually almost doesn't know what's real or what's imaginary. And it kind of even goes back to when we were children, right? When we were playing imagination, right? And we'd imagine things, and we thought it was real. We were playing real. We didn't know any difference, right? It was only until we started getting older that our parents and grandparents started telling us, oh, that's just your imaginary friend. No one else can see him. And you're like, oh, I thought everybody could see Mike, or whatever your imaginary friend's name was. So there's a lot of very interesting studies that are being done by independent groups, of course, because I do think there's groups that don't necessarily like it when we figure stuff out. But part of this that really came to me, and this is really how I found it, and this was actually, I think this was in one of my horoscopes. There's like a monthly horoscope thing that I like to read, and and this came out, and I was like, oh, that's actually very interesting. And then today I kind of dug in a little deeper and found some more stuff, but this is what sparked the whole thing for me. I had read elsewhere that the brain processes a daydream like a memory. And so the brain does not know the difference between real and imagined life. Said another way, the brain can't tell the difference between the future and the past. So once you convince your brain that you can achieve something, and further, that you have already achieved it by daydreaming the accomplishment, the brain will follow suit and believe the dream is real. Your entire mind, body, and spirit will be aligned in sync. You won't have the inner critic doubting you, so you are more likely to achieve your goal. Now, this is not just in the sense of creating the imaginal work and living in the end and all that. This also comes down to the fact of acting. So that's still very much a part of this concept. And this comes down to just trying to manifest anything, not just your specific person, though we're going to apply it towards that as well. But it also imagines if you're trying to get a new job, a new position in your company right now, or a new car, anything, right? New friends for that matter, new jobs, all that good stuff. When you imagine it, when you see it happening, it comes to the point where it becomes so real to you that you actually start to act as if it is occurring. So that's also similar to, quote, living in the end. I think a lot of us spend a lot of time living in the end in the imaginary sense, or the imaginal sense, but you also have to be acting as if you're living in the end, or acting as if this is already happening. And so thusly, you're making steps towards that. Now, every situation's different, so it's really hard to be super generic about all these different avenues. I mean, we've talked about things with like the specific person, for example, where if they're going to move in with you, you want to make room for them. Maybe you're cleaning out some stuff in the garage to make room for some of the storage that they're going to need to do at your place. But the actions you start to do start to kind of back up this belief. And when you're truly acting as if you have what you're seeking, the rest of your mind really starts to get behind it. And a lot of times, it's just the action of doing steps towards your specific person or towards your manifestation, whatever it is. So again, with specific persons, what are some things that are actually going to occur once you're together? Now, once you're together, what's different from right now? And this is what I kind of want all of you sort of to think about I totally want you to think about this. If your specific person was in your life right now, and I mean to the point where you wouldn't be questioning whether or not you have them, because I've got some people that comment that they're basically dating their specific person and they still have their moments where they don't text back quick enough and they get freaked out or whatever, but then they're going to have movie night 3 days later or whatever, right? Like, there's places where, in my mind, that's like you are way more together than maybe I kind of feel like I am right now. And again, I don't want to get into all my spiel per se, because stuff's working awesomely in my world and I'm very happy with the direction it's going, but I'm not hanging out with her on any sort of regular basis, right? I would consider us together if that were the case, even if I only see her once a week. If I was seeing her once every single week, we're together in my mind. Like, that's done. That's easy. But again, the question is, what is different? What are you doing different now that you're together? So kind of what I want is I want a list. It'd be great if you guys would drop some comments, maybe, things that you would do if that were happening. But what would be different? Right now, your life is this. You wake up in the morning, you go through your day, bam, right? And then you just, you think about them a lot or whatever, but leave all that junk out. If you were waking up today and they were part of your reality, they were your boyfriend or they were your girlfriend or whatever, you're back together, whatever the case is, what is different? What are you doing different? What happens in your life differently than it does right now? That is the actions that you want to start doing now. Any of that stuff that you can. Any of that stuff that you can maybe prep, right? Maybe they like to cook, right? Maybe they like to cook and you've got a sorry set of kitchen utensils. We'll get some kitchen utensils, right? Because they're going to be coming over and they're going to be cooking dinner for you. Or maybe they die. I don't know, right? What is it that is different for you? What is it that makes the difference? Like what? Because that is really what it comes down to. One, this whole process of thinking about these things is going to help you imagine it even further. Two, it gives you some actual actions that you can follow through with. So let's go ahead and cut a couple of these quotes I got. So from the Smithsonian.com. But this study shows how working memory is also closely tied to our tendency to think beyond our immediate surroundings at any given time. Our results suggest that the sorts of planning that people do quite often in daily life, when they're on the bus, when they're cycling to work, when they're in the shower, are probably supported by working memory. And what that means is, as you're doing this imaginal work, it's literally implanting itself into your working memory, which means your brain has this memory of what you were just imagining. And this memory, as far as your brain is concerned, is a real memory. It's the same thing as remembering when you went to Disneyland yesterday, or remembering that bicycle ride you took yesterday, or that memory is the same memory. It's writing itself in the same location. To put it in like computer terms, it's writing in the same section on your hard drive, if you will, right? All of this stuff is writing in exactly the same place, so it seems like it's a real memory. So again, if we can find activities that maybe we would be doing otherwise, start imagining those too. Start doing the actions, and you start to bring about these outcomes. From livescience.com. When our minds run out of working memory, these off-topic thoughts can take the main stage without us consciously meaning them to. For instance, arriving at home with no recollection of the actual trip, or suddenly realizing that you've turned several pages in a book without comprehending any of the words. It's almost like your attention was so absorbed in the mind wandering that there wasn't any left over to remember your goal to read. So again, when these wandering cycles happen, and one thing I kind of want to step aside for a moment and speak of the wandering, a lot of times these daydreaming things to me have come through as almost like channeled messages, and I hate using that word liberally because it's just begging a lot of questions that I don't want to answer. But again, when these things are coming to you, it is kind of like a higher self feeding it down into your conscious self, and when it's done in this sort of daydreamy kind of way, it's actually implanting memories into your subconscious. So it's, again, one of those other places where the higher self can actually directly involve itself in your conscious reality and actually affect the outcomes of your manifestations, can actually help make these things more real. So again, when we get our thoughts in line, when we get our actions in line, when all of these things are congruent, and now we start daydreaming too, in line with what we're after, this starts to create a very magical, profound, real memory structure within the brain. And then your inner chatter begins to accept this as reality because there's enough of that memory complex, basically, in your brain for your conscious mind to go, yeah, I remember it. We were just thinking about this yesterday. It was totally happening. So these are ways you can kind of keep your manifestation strong. It's some scientific evidence of how that mechanism kind of works and why I think Neville Goddard just nailed it, 70 years ago? Nailed it when it came to the imaginal work. The man was on fire. He knew exactly what he was talking about, and it was beautiful. Talk about channeling. I'm sure he was pulling that down from someplace. Probably God, right? At least that's where he probably believed it was coming from. And that's a good thing. You know, it really kind of gets that ball moving, and it really makes an enormous difference in our whole outcome, our whole mindset, how we feel. All these things start to tie together when you can get your thoughts, your words, and your deeds in line. And the deeds are those actions that I'm talking about. All three of those things are manifesting, and they're all powerful manifestors. And just to cover them one more time, I've mentioned this in a number of shows, but we'll say it one more time. Thoughts, words, deeds, right? These are the way that we manifest. Your thoughts are the least powerful of your manifestation abilities, of the creative aspect. Your thoughts are the least powerful. They're still very powerful, and we do them quite often. Your words, when you're speaking as if it's happening, is the next most powerful way that you can manifest. So when you're talking about things happening the way you believe them to be happening, you're putting more power towards that. When you're talking about the things you're doubting, the things you're not, like, that's a pretty strong manifestation in the opposite direction. Again, what we're talking about, I don't care if you're just telling your friends because you want to get it off your chest, whatever the case, the universe does not care. What you're giving attention to is what you are creating. Period, period, period. End of story. Don't ask. It doesn't matter. Universe is not going to go, well, but she meant. No. Universe doesn't do that. Universe gives you exactly what you're talking about, no matter what it is. No matter what it is. So try to get yourself in line because it makes all the difference in the world. And then, of course, your deeds, your actions are the strongest form of manifestation. It is like an entire body complex getting involved and being behind this manifestation process. So it's very powerful. So when your actions support what you're trying to manifest, that is the strongest way you can work towards your manifestation. Again, if you can come up with things you can do, like what would be different? Again, what would be different if you were together right now? What would be different if you had your job right now? Would you be wearing different clothes? What would be different if you had that car right now? What would be different? Those are some of the actions that you can start to take in advance, that you can start to prepare yourself. Just from the car example, maybe it's a little bigger than the one you have, and you might need to make a little room in the garage. Make some room for that car. Again, these kinds of things are powerful. So kind of look to see what you can do, what actions you can take, what would be different if you had right now what you seek, and what can you start to do to sort of grease those palms, if you will, to try to make that reality easier. You know, is it kitchen utensils? Is it buying pretty underwear? Is it a new wardrobe? Is it getting your hair done, getting it colored? New makeup, new lipstick color? What is it? What is your thing? Do it. Do it now, do it tomorrow, do it next week, but do it soon, because that's going to be part of the power of your manifestation. We're going to be going out with a great Aerosmith song, kind of sticking with the whole theme of dreams and daydreaming. This one's called Dream On.